There you go. Very good. All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining me again today. Really, really a pleasure. Okay, and we're going to do something today. We learned something today, which I must say, when I first learned it, I was very surprised. There's an awful noise going on. 1 second. Can we shut up? That was fine. Yeah. We probably have to set up mine as well. Yeah, let's shut off telephones. Good thinking, everybody. Mine won't shut off. Oh boy. Perfect. All right, so when I first learned this material, I was very surprised, okay? And I think you'll be surprised as well. And then it very surprised in a very nice way, but it made me think a lot. And what we're going to learn about today is we're actually going to learn how God communicates with us, okay? Now, we learn a lot about how we communicate with God. We learn about prayer, okay? And he gave us the Torah. But how does he communicate with us in our daily lives, each individual? Shona, do you want some material? Okay. Say that. All right. And this is what Rabbi Yehudah Leib Ashlag wrote. Okay. בואו למד, חוכמה האמיתית, כי בהבורא עצמו יתברך, לית מחשבה תפיסי בי כלל וכלל. Come and learn the true wisdom, for as regards the Creator may be blessed, no thought can apprehend him in any way at all. Vatam pashut, and the reason is simple. Ki kol hamachshavot shenoflot b'mocho shel adam, for all the thoughts which come into the human mind, heima etzem pulat haborei, they are actually the work of the Creator himself. Well, Selomar, what he wants to say by this, lo kamo shemurgash ba'adam, it's not the way we feel it, shu mamshicha me'ezu makom, that we bring our thoughts from some place, or shenoladim etzlo minei ubei, or that somehow or other they are born within us, that we are the authors of our own thoughts. That's actually not true. And look at his language. Ze sheker rosh l'kol hashkarim. I mean, that's the strongest language I've ever heard, really. Okay? Sheker rosh l'kol hashkarim. That is the biggest lie of all, that we are the authors of our own thoughts. So let's just take a moment to think about what he's really saying. He's telling us here that every single thought that falls into our minds, and I asked Rav Gottlieb about this, the great student of Rabbi Yehudah, does he mean feelings here as well? And the answer is yes. Sometimes in Kabbalah, thoughts are distinguished from feelings because thoughts are the potential and feelings are the actual. Thoughts are in the mind and feelings are the actuality in the body, okay? But sometimes when he just wants to talk in a more general sense about thoughts, then he'll put the whole thing together, okay? So there's thoughts and feelings, all right? So here when he says that we get a thought or we get a feeling, all right, we think it's ours. And what does he say? Sheker, rosh l'kol hashkarim. It is the biggest lie of all.
What happened to Macabbi and Mishtalem?
Okay, we're going to get to that. It's a good question, and really ask the questions, okay? And then we'll deal with the questions as we go along, all right? So that's a very good question. What about Kol Bidei Shemayim Chutz Miyirat Shemayim? Okay.
Which means.
Okay. All right, which means everything is in the hands of heaven except for Yirat Shemayim, having fear of, having reverence for God, obeying God, Malchut Shemayim. So Judy's asked a question. Well, I would say most of that is included in what you said. Okay, most of our thoughts aren't about Yirat Shemayim. Let's be honest. Okay, so that means all thoughts that come from God. There you go.
What about obsessive thoughts?
All right, what about obsessive thoughts? Okay, every single thought, okay, he says here, every single thought, that we think we own our own thoughts is the biggest lie of all. Ela kol machshava, daka min hadaka, but every thought, however subtle it may be, haboreit barach sholcha lamocho shel adam. It is the Creator may be blessed, who is sending it to the brain of the human being, to the mind of the human being. And it is the way that God motivates us, moves us to do his will, all right? Whether we're a human being, whether we're an animal, whatever. Dahainu, that is to say, ברצות הבורא להניע את החי, פועל בו שליחות מחשבה אחת, ואותה מחשבה מנענעת אותו כפי מידתה. Whenever the Creator wants to move a created being to do his will, he sends him a thought, okay? And that thought moves him to do whatever he needs to do according to his measure. So there's, lions get thoughts about killing bucks, killing antelopes, and human beings get different types of thoughts, all right? כמו ששולח מטר פני האדמה, והאדמה אינה מסוגלת להרגיש מי ששולח אליה את המטר, כן האדם אינו מסוגל להרגיש בשום אופן מי ששלח לו את המחשבה. Just like the ground gets rain, okay? And the ground is operated by the rain. Once we see it, once the rain comes, it starts going green. Okay, we see it. I mean, you never see it so dramatic in Israel. After the whole long summer months, you get the first rain and suddenly the ground has come alive. It's all gone green. It's the most amazing thing. So just as the earth receives the rain and is acted on by the rain, but it doesn't have a clue who's sending him the rain, all right? In the same way, the human being אינו מסוגל להרגיש בשום אופן מי ששלח לו את המחשבה. We are not able to feel directly in any way whatsoever who is sending us the thought. כי לא ירגיש בה, because he can't feel the thought, he can't sense the thought. The term שבא לרשות מוח הדמיון שלו, until he comes into the domain of his own intelligence, of his own consciousness, okay? וכיוון שנמצא ברשותו, and since he can only feel it once it's in his domain, he thinks it's his, okay? All right? נראית אליו כמו חלק מעצם שלו, it feels exactly like it's his own. ובזה תבין שלית מחשבת ויסייפה. It's very interesting. He takes this idea as the reason for why we cannot, in fact, apprehend God in any way at all. There's other reasons. This is the reason he gives here. And the reason is simple. Because the Creator will never imagine that he wants to send us such a thought. That we will be able to attain him. There is a purpose and for everything. All right. So God is communicating to us with our thoughts. Okay. He's sending every single one, every single individual, whoever it is, their own personal and private thoughts. It is God's way of communicating with each one of us on an individual personal basis. And it is the basis of Hashgacha Pratit. Okay, 1 second. Okay. and he organizes for each individual person the order of those thoughts. That the end of that whole organization, if you like, of thoughts, ultimately we are come to the true connection with God that he wants us to have. That nobody gets left out. Okay, Reva, you wanted to ask something else.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You have to talk up, so
Okay.
it's a bit hard.
Okay,
Hard
yeah.
to hear it.
Would be the first time I heard that.
Okay.
Okay. It's as I run that through my own system, I remember times of being attacked by very negative thoughts and
Right.
Right, very cruel, mean, vicious, and abusive. So now that's also God. And the way I was taught since I was 6 years old is this Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov.
Right.
Thoughts that you should listen to, thoughts you shouldn't listen to, thoughts that you tune out,
Right.
thoughts you push away. Obviously, we all feel the dichotomy of that. And also what it does to your mind. It's good, not bad for me anyway, since I'm a little girl. It's not bad thought, it's not bad thought, I don't know, right? But you know what I'm talking about?
Totally.
We call that the Yetzer Hara.
Right.
There's something inside that is so cruel and vicious
Yes.
to me.
Right.
And you're saying that's God.
Also, yes.
Right, so I'm gonna need some help with that.
Okay, right, yes, that's a very good question. All right, excellent. Did anybody hear the question? There's something here, Judy, I'm awfully sorry, but I don't really understand this. It says low system resources might affect your quality or something. I don't know what it is.
I also have some thought.
Okay, one second. Let me just say the question for everybody, because I don't know. Did everybody hear what Reva said?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right. So we don't do this then. Okay.
So the place where we think that it's our thought, is that an ego place?
No, not exactly. No. Yes and no. It's a very good question that you're asking. All right. The basic vessel that each one of us has is the vessel of creation, which is called the will to receive. Okay. All right. It's called the will to receive. Okay. And that is the nature of the created being. All right. Right from the very beginning of creation, from the Ein Sof Baruch, the light is the desire of God to give all his goodness. And that created a vessel, which is called the Malchut of the Ein Sof, with which to receive all the goodness that he wants to give us. And every created being is an aspect of this vessel, it's an aspect of the created being. So yes, okay, now how does that vessel appear in each one of us? Okay, in modern terms, we call it the ego. Okay, so yes, we do receive it within the ego. It's a very good understanding. It is not egoism or egocentric or selfish. It simply is. It's simply the nature of creation. Okay? Excellent. Very good question. All right. Yes, sure.
I'm sorry, I feel like if I'm being selfish.
No, it's okay. No. You're speaking on behalf of everybody. That the thought, if the thought came to you, it came to you God, so it's okay.
So, and then the obvious question that everyone's asking is how on earth are we held accountable? We know that our thoughts give rise to our emotions, and our emotions give rise to our actions.
Yes.
We're only accountable on some level for our actions,
Right.
but actions are a product of thought.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And how is this far on?
Right. Exactly. So what you're asking about is how does this fit with what we talked about, the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara? What do we do with negative thoughts? How can negative thoughts come from God? Okay. And in which case, where's free choice? Okay. Where's free choice? Where's the love on it? All right. All these are brilliant questions, and including which Judy also asked. All right. So this is absolutely this is why we've got a lot of pages. Okay.
I just have this question.
I'm not quite sure we're gonna let you go.
I'm getting an answer now.
All right.
Let's get ahead to the answer.
Okay, no, we're not going to skip any answers. We're going to go bit by bit. Okay. So God arranged for each one of us, and I think this is a very important point. Before we go into these difficult questions that everybody's asking, I want to look at it from the positive side. I want to say the great master of the universe, the Ribono Shel Olam, the Borei, the Shoresh Shel Hakol, the root of everything, troubles to send each single person on an individual basis his love, his care, his attention through our thoughts. We are not abandoned. Every single person has this communication, and it's very important that we start to listen. It's amazing how much we tend in the modern world, to dismiss our thoughts. Oh, that was just a passing thought. Or some even meditation systems tell you to treat your thoughts like clouds that drift by, okay? But God is actually talking to us through this. It says very clearly, He organized for us a system of thoughts for each individual, from which that specific order, ultimately, each one of us is obliged to attain the light of God, to attain the revelation of the light of God within us. That is to have awareness of God's presence within our own consciousness, okay, which is called Gilui. Okay, what's the word Gilui? Revelation of the light of God. When we talk about revelation of the light of God, we don't mean big things happening out there. We're talking about actually finding God within us. That's what revelation of the light of God really means, to find the presence of God within us, okay? Until we really attain him in the true measure, okay, in the inner meaning of what's written in Shmuel, nobody, however lowly we are, however far away we are, nobody is left out, okay? So we're all destined to come to recognition of the light of God within each one of us. The last bit here. Hakol taloi b'mazal. Everything depends on the, not on luck, that's not what it means. Everything depends on the higher power, okay, influencing us. Even the plants. There are plants who get their sustenance from the ground easily. And there are some which get their sustenance with difficulty. Same with human beings. Likewise, the insects and the animals. And likewise, the human being. With human beings, the way our needs are fulfilled happens with a different way than all the other creatures of the world. Because for them, the way we receive our needs is done only by God sending thoughts alone. Okay, and then he gives an example. For example, a poor man, poor man is about to die, he hasn't got any food, he's feeling like got no strength left. Got no way, any hope left, any possible way of getting anything to eat. And the Creator sends to a rich man, a generous man, to think about what mitzvah can I do today. Well, it's got and suddenly he says, oh, there are poor people in my city, I need to take care of them. Suddenly remembers this guy, okay? And he sends his servant to find out if he's got anything to eat, and he gives him chalak lechem echad, and he gives him a loaf of bread. Okay? And we all know stories like this. These are amazing stories. how somebody fell down in their house and they couldn't reach the telephone. And suddenly the neighbor suddenly thought that they ran out of sugar or something, they bang on the door, they didn't open. Finally, they call the ambulance, they call the police, and the guy gets saved. Okay? How? Because God sent a thought into somebody's head. Okay? So from the smallest issue, which is to the biggest issues, God sends us our thoughts. Okay? So now all the questions that you asked are all very important questions. Okay? Every single one of them is important. So Rabbi Ashlag actually did write about those questions in another place. Oh no, wait a minute. Sorry, I didn't finish yet, because I photocopied this in different times. All right, so, okay, all right, maybe that would be easier. Thank you. Right, Resertion of Rabbeinu Bala Sulam. You get it? Hey, that's the last bit at the bottom. Okay. He asked he asked this question. This is from another piece of writing. First one was from I forgot to tell you. First one was an article he wrote in a book called Pri Chacham, which has been collected in a book called Pri Chacham Sikot. This one is from a letter that he wrote to a student, and he says, Weaver's question. How can we possibly relate a foreign thought, a polluted thought, a disgusting thought? Okay, let's be honest. Okay, you'll get them. All right. All right. To the Creator may be blessed. All right. Who is the ultimate of is good and does good. All right. We can have a thought of anger. We can have a thought of hatred. We can have a thought of revenge. We can have a thought of any thought. Rebellion against God. Okay, all these thoughts. Okay, they're also part of what God is sending to us. Okay, Bala Sulam doesn't. He's very straight. This guy, he doesn't mince matters. Okay, I love the Bala Sulam because he talks about things that nobody else talks about. Okay. But to the true people who are trying to serve God, okay, so you don't have to succeed, you only have to try. Okay, as far as the Bala Sulam is concerned, success belongs to God. All we have to do is try. He says somebody who's trying to be a tzaddik is considered a tzaddik. Okay, all you have to do is try. Success is not our province. Success is God's province. Okay, so just you want to learn Torah, you're considered a Talmid Chacham. You just want to be a tzaddik, you want to go in the ways of God, you're already considered a tzaddik because success is not in our hands. Okay, all right. So someone who's trying to serve God in truth opens to us the connection b'hashgacha pratit. Okay, that God is intimately involved in our lives on an individual and personal basis. Shehu Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that He, the Holy Blessed One, Hamasavev Kol Hasivot Shekadmu Lezeh, who did every single that He created every single chain of events that led us to where we are at this very moment. Okay. From the good and from the bad together. All of them come from the divine providence who wants to bring us to Him. Okay? And if we have the seichel to relate everything to God, we purify it, we raise it up. Okay? Now, of course, we feel sad when we get a bad thought, okay? And we feel upset. And the basis of the sadness and the basis of why we feel upset, we're going to look at it in the next pages, all right? And what Teshuvah we should do and all that. We're going to look at all of that. Nevertheless, even a bad thought, if we say to God, I'm sorry you sent me such a bad thought, and we relate it to God, Okay, I'm sorry you deem me worthy of getting all these bad thoughts. I'm very sorry about that. At least we're relating it to God. He says, whatever we can bring to connect with the pure becomes pure. Now, I mean, think about what he's saying. If I'm sure you've all learned, this concept of breaking of the vessels, all right, and all these sparks fell down into wherever they fell down, okay, into different aspects of reality. So what are we doing with a negative thought? And we're relating it to God. We're saying, okay, God, this negative thought, I'm raising it up. I'm connecting it with you. I'm joining it with you. I'm joining it with your love. I'm joining it with your joy. I'm joining it with your simcha. I know it's a very difficult thing to do, but it's possible, okay? And because we unite the one who is doing the mashkiach, God, the divine providence, okay, to his divine providence, and we don't distinguish whether the thought is positive, the thought is negative. You'll see how to distinguish it in a bit, okay? Okay. And what we are here discovering is that both the thoughts, not saying it doesn't have good ends and bad ends, whatever, but what we're discovering that the thoughts, both the good and the bad, all have the same source. If the person has the merit to unite them all with the Creator, all of them are beloved, all of them are clear. For all of them are vessels of God which are prepared to beautify and bring the revelation of God's unity. All the actions, and the thoughts, all the good and all the bad, they are the vehicles for God, they're the vessels for God. He prepared them and they came out from his mouth. And this will become totally manifest to all of us at the Gemara Tikkun. So it is a difficult thing it's a difficult concept to take on, it really is. All right, so I'm absolutely, my questions were the same as yours, all right? When I read this, my hair stood up on it. I said, what is going on here, okay? But first of all, you have to understand, a thought is a thought. We do not have to act on it, okay? Just because I have a thought of Lashon Hara, that does not mean to say that Lashon Hara has to come out of my mouth. What I have to say to God at this point is to say, thank you, God, for sending me a thought of Lashon Hara. And the answer is no. You gave me Torah mitzvot, and the Chachamim tell us you're not allowed to say Lashon Hara. So I'm not going to speak Lashon Hara. And you simply will say to God, this is a nisayon, this is a test, and I'm not going to do it. Didn't God give tests to Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov? Of course he did. Yeah.
But then even that thought is false.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. Absolutely.
I'm not hearing any different sheet, because even that thought is, then God sends me another thought that I don't have to respond to that.
That's true. We have actually much less Rechov sheet than we think we have.
I have one that from the scripture, basically almost no sheet.
Yes, we have much less Rechov sheet than we think we have. Okay, but nevertheless, we're given the illusion of Rechov sheet at least. Okay, that must be a reason for that. Yeah.
Is this the thing that like all this is deep opinion, or this is out to the black out to or the other in the whole different way?
The Baal Shem Tov, this is according to the Baal Shem Tov. Okay, and we're going to read about the Baal Shem Tov, what he says also on the next piece. It isn't. I can't I can't really answer that very well. Rav
People like
Ashlag,
it, right? I mean, but it's very hard, it's very hard to get.
okay, first of all, like I said, I thought this was amazing. I thought it was absolutely amazing. It's amazing because God is really saying, I am Ein Od Milvado. There is none other than God. 1 minute, I really want to Ein Od Milvado. There is nothing other than God. Okay. Now that's a concept that we've all heard. Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing other than God. And instead of saying to just okay, just say okay, I'll call hashgacha pratit when we hear something bad happening outside of ourselves. Okay. All right, I want to dedicate the learning today, reminds me of to Rechov Yerushalayim and to be a shaliach tov to Hadassah Sarah Bat Caroline. She's a little 4-year-old girl who's the daughter of one of my Yedidahs, and she had a little operation for squint or strabismus on her eye on Wednesday, and it didn't go well, and they reopened it on Friday, and it's still not right. And now they're going to go to a great specialist this afternoon, and it might be needing open up again. So I really want mamash be Rechov Yerushalayim. So when something happens, we say outside of ourselves, that's hashgacha pratit. All that Rav Ashlag is doing here is saying when something's happening inside ourselves is also hashgacha pratit. It's not saying anything different than that. Okay? Ein Od Milvado, there's nothing other than him. Okay? So now there's lots of questions about how to handle this, how to deal with it, how to relate to it. I agree with all of what you're saying. Okay? But when you really think about the essence of what he's saying, he's not saying anything new. He's saying what is outside yourself, we say, is hashgacha pratit. What is inside yourself is also hashgacha pratit. Okay? And it's hashgacha pratit in such an intimate way, okay, that we need to pay attention to it. That's what he's really saying. Okay? And we will come to the issue of the Yetzirah and the Yetzirah, free will and everything. Right, what was your next question?
It wasn't a question, it was a statement, which is bothering me so much, so I'm wondering if it's bothering anyone else. I think I've seen the Truman Show.
You've seen what, sorry?
It was a movie, the Truman Show, about a man who thought he was living a normal life, but his whole life was being filmed by a director and moved around by a director and acted upon by other actors and actresses. And it's so existentially meaningful, that message, and that feels similar.
Well, let's relate this to the Borei Olam and not to any shows, okay? If you don't mind. All right.
It's a mess there, obviously. I'm not worried about the reference to the show. If you tap into a mess there of it's all being orchestrated.
Well, we either accept Ein Od Milvado or we don't, okay? I mean, I'm not here to, I'm presenting the material, okay?
I think this is the most beautiful part I've ever learned in my life.
That's fine.
I'm asking questions because it feels
So difficult, so strange.
it's so important.
And important, right? But all your questions are important, all important ones. Okay, another question at the back.
Yeah, that question is, I think we've all had moments in the, like, when people have seen in their life, they make a decision with Hashem and also say, like, you should turn left, and go left because it doesn't work, or whatever. But is it that, what you're saying is not just that one time Hashem sent you that message to turn left, like, all the faults are always.
Yes, that's what he's saying. And that really means, because only occasionally do I pay attention. Only occasionally do I pay attention. And then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, if God is talking to me all this time, why aren't I paying more attention? Okay?
So that also means that he can give you answers.
Sorry?
He can give you answers.
Exact, well done. Now, I learned this with a chavruta.
What she said?
That he can also gives us answers. I learned this with a chavruta, a religious man, very lovely man, Orthodox, who's a part of an Orthodox congregation in Jacksonville, Florida. And he straight away took this and he started to make meditations, emunah meditations, based on the fact that God is talking to us and we can talk back to him and get answers. We can communicate with him. I mean, he just took this idea and said, let's see where this goes. And he's now started doing some meditations, Jewish meditations, which he's writing with his congregation in Kahal with Tzibor in Jacksonville, and it's going very well. So, I mean, it's got a lot of ramifications, and I think in a very positive way. Now, we're going to have to go into this next week as well, because it's a lot of material, all right? So we're going to start off with some answers, all right, to some of the questions you've asked. They're all very good questions, all right? Okay, Hinei Katuv, it's written in Devarim, Shchinta Begaluta, Shana Shamati. You haven't got it? Here's another one. So then you've got one sheet here.
4 pages.
You got the wrong one? Here's another one. Maybe it's another.
Anybody else need? You need?
Okay. It's Mama Aleph, Linyan Shpinta Begaluta. Anybody else need? All right. Hinei Katuv B'Dvarim, it's written in Dvarim. Rav Ashlag. Okay, this is one of his old talks that he gave to his students, and Rabbi Yehudah Leib Ashlag wrote it down after Shabbos. Okay. Hinei Katuv, it's written in Dvarim, Ein od milvado. There's nothing other than him. Sheperu, which means she'ein shum koch acher ba'olam she'iter lo yocholet latzot mashu negdo yibarach. There is no other power in the world which has the ability to do anything at all against his will. May be blessed. And that a person sees, and it appears to him that there are things in the world that deny the heavenly court. Asibahi, the reason is that is his will. Now, take what he says not just as outside, but as inside as well. Okay, because it's clear from the other piece of writing that what we learned just now of Ashlag means both the outside and the inside. We all see what's happening on the outside, which seems to deny the reality of God in the world. Okay, we see, we just have to put on the news for 5 minutes, okay, and it looks like that. Okay, but what he's saying is that happens not only on the outside, it happens on the inside as well. Okay, nothing can happen even on the inside which is not coming from him. And the reason is kachu etzono, that is his will, may be blessed. Now he's going to go into why. All right, this is the way of tikkun. Hanikra smol docher v'yamin mekarevet. All right, the left hand pushes us away, the right hand brings us close. All right, now the what in the thoughts? The right hand is the positive thought, it's the good thought, it's the loving thought, it's the thought of the mitzvah, it's the thought of the joy, it's the thought of the love, it's the thought of cooking Shabbos, it's the thought of the challahs on the table, it's the thought of the candles, okay? That's the yamin makarevet. What's the small docher? The obsessive thoughts, the angry thoughts, the why this and the why that, and who did this to me and whatever, okay, or why is this happening, okay? That's the small docher. The two hands of God are operating, all right? The right hand bringing us close, the left hand pushing us away, all right? Klomar, masha smol docher, that the left hand, which is the negative thoughts, which are coming within us, nichnas begeder shel tikkun, is part of our tikkun, okay? Why is it part of our tikkun? Because the answer really is, if we did not have that negative stuff, none of us would be sitting here trying to learn Torah. All right? That's the reality. Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Torah Tavlin. The need for Torah comes because we have recognition of the negative within us. Okay? Moshe Rabbeinu, the angel said to Moshe Rabbeinu, they went up to get the Torah on Mount Sinai, and they accused. They said, what's this human being doing up here? You know? And they said to God, you want to give this precious Torah to this human being? And so Moses said, and so God said to Moses, answer them. And he says, Kulum yesh lecha ka'as, kulum yesh lecha lashon hara. Have you got anger? Have you got lashon hara? You don't need the Torah up here. We need the Torah. All right? So it's the recognition of the evil within us, which wakens up within us the need for Torah, the need for correction, the need to work on ourselves, the need to learn. If we didn't have the angry thoughts and the obsessive thoughts, if we didn't have the tendency to read Lashon Hara, who would read the Chafetz Chaim? Okay? All right? It's the truth. It's the truth. It gives us motive power. It really does. It's because that we feel cut off from God that we start looking for God. All right? So the negative has a purpose. זאת אומרת, ישנם דברים בעולם שבאו מלכתחילה מתוך הכוונה להטות את האדם מדרך הישר. There are things in the world, including thoughts within us, that from the beginning came into us with the intention of pushing us off the right way. Okay? שעל ידינו נדחה מן הקדושה. And by this, a person is chucked out of the framework of holiness. All right, what happens? We feel miserable. Okay, but toelet mezachiotu, and the use that comes from these rejections that we get is that through these rejections that we get is woven within the human being a true and whole need and desire. And he becomes suddenly he says, I need God. Things aren't going well for me. Look at my angry thoughts. Look at the rows I get with my husband. Look at the way I treat my children. I don't want to be like this anymore. God help me. And then we start to go, we start to look, we start to find, we start to search. Okay? So it's the negative actually is a very powerful motivator, okay, for us to look for Torah, to us to look for God. All right? Shiazolo. And we want God to help us. All right? And we get to a point where we say, die, enough, God. I don't want this anymore. I want to come to Dveikut Nitzchit. I want to come to connection with you on a permanent basis. I'm fed up of the ups and downs. Okay? Enough already. So this is what it does to us. It wakes up true desire. Ki acheret. Because if he's really honest, acheret hu ro'eh shu avud. Because he says, if you don't help me, I can't do this on my own. All right? Because what happens? We all get up and we have a few moments of good and then we all fall down again. All right? Oh, yeah?
What about Tzaddikim in Talia? It says that the Tzaddik doesn't have any bad thoughts.
Well, Kol echad gadol himenu, yitzro gadol himenu. The greater the guy, the greater the Yetzer Hara.
And then
He just has got more practice in dealing with them.
And then there's the pasuk that says Tzaddik who falls 7 times gets up.
So it says what? That's right. So he falls down and he gets up again. Well, what's the difference? Same as us. Okay. All right. Okay. We all fall down and we all have to get up again. Okay. All right. Yes. Tzaddik mat lipol, im Hashem lo yazor lo, lo yachol lakum. That's right. If God doesn't help us, how do we get up again? All right. How does he help us through our thought? Okay. So he sends us this thought, sends us that thought. All right. Okay. Yes. Absolutely. All right. Kilo dai shalom itkadem b'avodah. He's been really, really straightforward. Okay. Really, really honest. Okay. And he said sometimes it happens that a person doesn't even see he's going forwards in his work. He sees he's going backwards. All right. All right. We are holocate. All right. And he says, Kirak al yedei. Wait a minute, I messed a bit. Sometimes it even happens that it's hard for him to fulfill even Torah mitzvot on the most basic level. All right, even from Torah shelo lishma. Only by tremendous effort and overcoming all the obstacles in faith is he able to fulfill Torah mitzvot. Otherwise he's going to fall off the way completely. All right. And what's going to be the end of all of this? All right. So I'm going to move to the next paragraph here. As. All right. As. Okay. Then he comes to a decision. Enough already, he says to God. Nobody else can help me except God himself. And this causes, that is fixed in his heart, a true demand, a true prayer. It's not a prayer like, you mutter a prayer, okay? It's a true prayer, all right? This is okay, this is a true prayer where it says, listen, I'm drowning. If you don't help me, how am I going to get up again? All right. So he says, Shashem yiftach et einav libo. God, open my, it's not enough, it's not his eyes, it's his thoughts, okay? Open my thoughts and my heart. Bring me close to you in truth, in a permanent way. Nimtza, therefore we see, from what we've learned, all the negative events that happened, whether they were outside of him or whether they were inside of him, actually all came from God and woven together. It's like the carrot and the stick, okay? Woven together, the positive and the negative, all right? To bring him close to God and make a true prayer to God. Because when it's a true prayer, we have to know 1000% that it's immediately answered. This is something that Rabbi Ashlag writes in another place, that we have to know that our prayers are answered immediately. He says there's no such thing as praying and God doesn't answer us. All right, we might not see the answer, we might not be able to appreciate the answer, but the prayers are answered 1000%. He said we absolutely know. Not only that, he writes also that the thought to pray is God calling us. Okay, it's not our thought. God calls us through the thought to pray, and then we pray and he answers us. He wants us to pray to him. Yeah.
And in retrospect, they see the answer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you look at the chain of events, I find this in my own life, when I find things happen in my life, okay, and at the time they're difficult, they're painful, whatever. But when I look back on the suffering and look back on the periods of difficulty, I say, wow, God, you showed me something I could not have learned, obviously, any other way. We wish we could learn without suffering, but most of us can't. The reality is that we need both sides. Okay, that's reality. Yes, Shana.
Okay, so that is good. The seating coach, free choice, the conflict free choice, and
yes. Yes.
Is really not a conflict, it just depends on where the overmost person is. At a certain level, a person has tremendous difficulty understanding this conflict. I mean, how can I just say, I'll check out what I'm going to do tomorrow and how I do it for, or similar to but my sense is that on a different level, it will hear completely differently. And as you go up the levels, that's what people have said, not that I've been there, but I'm just imagining it,
Yes.
that all this will be clarified and there won't be a problem at all. It's like if you're in 2D, you can imagine 3D. Maybe in 3D you can imagine 4D.
Right.
But you can imagine 15D
No.
or 25D.
No.
But yes, at some level it exists somehow.
Yes.
And if we were there, it would be very easy.
Exactly. Very beautiful. That's very nice what you said. Thank you very much, Shayla. That's very lovely. On the other hand, but there is a point, okay, which I think where the hierarchy really does exist, okay, and that is when God sends me a negative thought, I need to stop a moment and say, this is a communication from Hashem. I need to take this seriously. And my answer to this is no, okay? No, Hashem, I am not going to speak Lashon Hara. I don't want to not fulfill Torah mitzvot. Your Torah says like this, and I'm not going to obey. All right. Now, if you look at the lives of our forefathers, they all had nisyonot. They all had trials. What would have happened if they hadn't stood up to their trials? Okay. What is a nisayon? Okay, so they all had nisyonot. I mean, every single one of them. Okay, so some of the nisyonot were about obeying God, and other nisyonot were about saying no. Like, for example, we've just been learning about Yosef and the brothers. Okay, what would have happened if, when the thought came into their heads to sell Joseph down into Egypt, they said, we know about Brit Bein Abatorim, we learned that in Hebrew school, okay? Sorry, God, you're going to have to find another way to fulfill this. We're not selling our brother Joseph, okay? And then he would have got, there would have been another way in which it would have happened, okay? Then we would still have ended up in Egypt. God would have fulfilled the destiny, but the brothers would have been Nikiim. They would have said, no, we're not participating. What could have happened, for example, just to have a thought imagination, that Yosef could have got lost in the field. He did get lost in the field. He's looking for his brothers. He fell down into a pit. Nobody knew where he was, okay? Nobody knew where he was. His brothers didn't know where he was, and his father doesn't know where he was. Nobody knows where he was. The Ishmaelites come along, pull him out the pit, take him to Egypt. All right? The brothers had a part in it. They didn't. There was a reason why God sent to the brothers that particular thought of selling Yosef, all right, because he had to bring them to the place of Teshuvah. Okay, and the place of Teshuvah, we're going to talk about this next time, we won't have time this time. The place of Teshuvah is such an important place that God had to send them the negative thought of selling Yosef down into Egypt, okay, so that the brothers would have the opportunity to do Teshuvah, because a place of Teshuvah is such an important place that somehow also our sins and our mistakes also play a role, because without the mistakes and without the sins, we don't get to Teshuvah either. Okay, so this is part of what this is why we're talking about it now, because we'll go back to the whole issue. Okay, so they had a thought to kill him. Okay, so then right. So Yehudah said, "Don't let's kill him. No, we're not going to go as far as that." Okay, all right. So you don't have to, just because you have a negative thought, you can have a conversation with God about it. Okay, you don't have to. It's not we're not robots. We're not meant to be robots.
He had this thought he should kill his brother, and he just killed him.
That's right. But ultimately, b'diavad, after the event, you have to say that was God's will. Okay? What happens before the event, you have, the Baal Shem Tov tells us, before you act, you have 1,000,000 choices. Your total free choice. After the act, you have to say it was what God wanted. Okay, so we're going to look at that also, but next week. Yeah, that's what's a shame.
Actually really feeling places to be, because we can spend so much time in our lives fighting inside of ourselves, all the negative thoughts.
Right.
Really fighting them. I don't want that, I'm not good, it's not good. But if you can actually select them and look at them without that fear, without whatever that is, it's a very healing place to be.
It's a very healing place. And he says, Kulam Hurim, Kulam Tuhorim. All of them are clarified, all of them are pure. I mean, by connecting them with God and saying, this is a nisayon that you're sending me, God, okay? And so my answer to this is no. Now we're going to look next week about what's our responsibility in all of this, okay? We're going to look at, is it my personal Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Ra, or is it something to do with my relationship with the Shekhinah, okay? On what basis do I have to be happy with the thoughts? On what basis do I have to be sad? Of course, if a person does an Avelah, he needs to regret it. He needs to be sorry. He needs to do tshuva on it. Nobody for 1 minute is suggesting not to, okay? If we do fall in, okay, and we don't stand up to the nisayon, and we fall down, and we connect with the negative thought, and we do the negative thought, okay, we have to eventually say that was also God's will, but we also need to do tshuva on it. And we have to also find the basis on what's the basis on which we need to do tshuva, okay? What's the basis of the sorrow that we feel? All right, all this is really important material because we need to see ourselves as having responsibility. We need to see ourselves as having responsibility for the Shekhinah. And when we do a sin, it's not just ourselves that suffers, it's the whole Shekhinah that suffers, okay? And that's the real issue, okay? That's the real basis. That we'll get onto in more detail next week, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay? Yeah. I can't hear, sweetheart. Come closer. I really can't hear. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
She basically said, you said before that there's lots of things and
Right.
Repeat the question.
Yeah.
Hashem is desiring of various and withholding what the request.
Right.
Because it's dear to him, the prayers, they don't get answered.
Well, they get answered, but not necessarily in the answer that we want to hear. You know, they do get answered, but the Baal Sulam says they get answered straight away, that all the prayers get answered straight away, but it might be an answer that is not satisfactory for us. Like, as you said, for the foremothers who were barren, we had to, God wants the prayers of the tzaddikim. That's another topic. Why does God want the prayers of the tzaddikim? All right, what does the prayers of the tzaddikim do? They actually change things, not only in this world, but they change realities also in the spiritual worlds. They go right up to the different elements in the spiritual worlds and able to bring light down to benefit everybody. So the prayers of the tzaddikim are very, very important. And for this reason, God sometimes puts them in situations that they're going to have to offer a lot of prayers, okay? Because when the person prays and his prayer goes all the way up, he's not the only beneficiary of the answer. It's the whole Shekhinah that benefits. Okay, the Shekhinah is the collective, all right? So again, we're going to be looking at what our relationship through this. We've talked about Hashgacha Pratit, God talking to us as individuals, but the answers to all these questions that you've asked, or all of you have asked, is not to be found in the individual. The answer is actually to be found in our relationship with the Shekhinah and the relationship of the Shekhinah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that's where these so-called contradictions are coming. In fact, when you look at it from the perspective of the Shekhinah, it all makes sense. Right? So when a person is denied, you know, the blessing of children, for example, so he prays and prays and prays and prays and prays, by his prayers, he's bringing blessings down to the whole community, to the whole world. Okay? It's a very good question.
It's not in vain.
Hmm? Sorry?
It's not in vain.
Nothing's in vain. That's it. Ain't not at all. Nothing's other than him. Okay, great, everybody.
Thank you so much.
What?
Thank you very much.
I would like to friendly remind you that we did help together, and also the afternoon classes for your schedules if you haven't made that, so that